Oh, you know what? I was on mute. I thought that everyone could hear me. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 809, Space and Technology. Please hit the like button that you come in, share the video if possible, hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. All right, there's a link in the chat if you want to join. If you want to join the discussion, there is a Zoom link there. Please update your Zoom client before joining. All right, share my screen. All right, let me know if you can see my screen. Yeah, just put one in the chat if you can see the screen. All right, cool. This is from the Daily Beast. I thought that, I would cover this first because I think that, with micromobility, e-scooters, e-bikes, and the alike, I think it's relevant, to the channel and some of the content that we covered in the past. I think Complex has been spearheading the whole Guerrilla e-bike and e-scooter movement in this space. So I think it's only par for the course. So meet the Guerrilla bike activists installing bootleg infrastructure for safer streets. I mean, we talked about this before. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I think it's still relevant. I stood on the corner of a neighborhood in Chicago's South Side and wondered if I had made a mistake. Well, two mistakes. The first was whether I arrived at the right place to meet my contact, John, who I had never met before and who was intentionally vague about where we were meeting. The second was whether I should be doing this in the first place. After all, it was definitely illegal and potentially dangerous. Footsteps echoed to my right. I turned half, expecting the cop to be asking me what I was doing on an empty street corner in the South Side at night. But instead, I saw a tall man walk towards me wearing dark clothes and a mask. This could be good or very bad, I thought. I placed my bet on it being good. Hey, he said, Tony from the Daily Beast. What you're seeing here is some tools and equipment. That's me. I'm trying to hide my relief. Good to meet you. Likewise. He said, mentioning for me to follow him soon, we arrived outside of a house where several people also donning masks and dark clothes stood on the sidewalk. They were surrounded by what looked like construction equipment, cinder blocks, PVC pipes, and metal fittings. One person set up caulking guns as though they were loading rifles. John introduced me to the group. This is it, he said to me. The People's CDOT. The People's CDOT, or the People's Chicago Department of Transportation, began in October 2022 in response to what John described as glaring deficiencies in the official CDOT. These deficiencies result in dangerous conditions on the streets of Chicago, endangering and claiming the lives of pedestrians and cyclists each year, according to John. The city doesn't do a good job of putting safe street infrastructure where people want, said John, whose name has been changed to protect his anonymity. Quote, so I thought, why don't we just build our own and put it where people want to put it? Interesting, he wants to build his own. I don't hear that a lot in this space. The group itself is made up of mostly cyclists who met at various other bike safety events. Together, they share the common motivation of ensuring safer streets in the city of Chicago. To date, John said the People's CDOT has installed 10 to 15 street calming infrastructure projects. This includes cinder block posts to protect bike lanes, concrete planters to stop cars from blocking sidewalks, plastic speed bumps to slow down vehicles, and cinder block billboards to prevent cars from driving on the lakefront trail. This is a picture of it right here. This is actually pretty innovative. I thought that although it's dangerous and probably illegal, it's actually pretty clever when you really think about it. But I always find it interesting that white people are willing to go this far to reclaim the streets, whereas, with Black people, they don't really seem to have any interest in this. But it starts with infrastructure, right? So these projects were initially self-funded, with John and other members of the organization paying out of their own pocket for equipment they needed for installations. However, they recently put up a donation page that he says is already raising a good amount of money, which he claims underscores the public support for their activism. Quote, we got a couple of $1,000 from folks in the past couple of weeks alone, he said. It's been great. The majority of the group's projects originate from the requests from community members who reach out over Twitter asking for help. Maybe their kids play on a street where cars frequently speed by, or maybe a cyclist was hit while traveling down a bike lane and a truck merged into them. When this happens, the people's CDOT will arrive in the area with equipment on hand to correct what they see as a failure on the city to properly protect its citizens from traffic danger. It's a type of vigilante activism that has seen a rise in recent years in major metropolitan areas like Chicago, New York City, and Los Angeles in response to drastic rise in pedestrian deaths in recent years. A report released in June by the Governor's Highway Safety Association found that drivers hit and killed more than 7,500 pedestrians in 2022, the highest number of fatalities since 1981. People of color represent a disproportionate amount of these deaths. So how do you explain this, right? We've been talking about micromobility and e-scooters, more specifically, e-bikes more generally, for the last couple of years. And people have laughed at us and said that, this doesn't have any place in the manosphere, it doesn't have any place in these sort of social spaces. But you just read it right here, right? 7,500 pedestrians in 2022, the highest number of fatalities since 1981. People of color represented a disproportionate amount of these deaths. These people have taken action from an activist standpoint by spending their own money and raising money to take back the streets, okay? Chicago alone saw 174 pedestrian deaths in 2021, a 13% spike from the previous year. Even in 2020, a year that saw much of the world quarantined and on lockdown, bike crash deaths rose by 16% compared to 2019 and rose another 5% the next year, according to Street Blog Chicago. Quote, everyone from CDOT to the mayor and the city at large have just done such a poor job of showing people what's possible for our streets, John said. So everyone just assumes that they are for cars and driving, and everything else is a hindrance to that. In response, the People's CDOT has emerged as a proactive, albeit clandestine, movement to ensure safer streets for cyclists and pedestrians, even though it's not necessarily legal. In fact, it could fall under the definition of both vandalism and street obstruction without a permit under the Municipal Code of Chicago. Nevertheless, the group remains stalwart in its resolve to bring attention to the dangers posed by current street infrastructure, and it's not alone. The Crosswalk Collective, LACC, is an LA-based group of community activists who paint do-it-yourself crosswalks on busy intersections in order to ensure pedestrian safety when crossing streets. This website even includes guides on how exactly others can paint their own guerrilla sidewalks. Interesting. This is very interesting. Crossing the street here in LA is a harrowing experience, a spokesperson for LACC told the Daily Beast. And if you have a small child with you, you notice it even more because often you won't have enough time to cross the street. Even some safety infrastructure does exist. They added that the sidewalk doesn't necessarily offer safety either because the intersections are so poorly designed that drivers lose control and drive into buildings and restaurants on a pretty regular basis. Now, that's pretty interesting, right? How does it get sanctioned? If it's so poorly designed, who sanctioned it in the first place, right? That's why you need oversight groups, community engagement groups, and things of that nature. That's what these people are doing. The statistics bear this out. A report released earlier this year from traffic safety nonprofit Streets Are For Everyone found that Angelenos are dying at a higher rate on the streets than the rest of the country by a fair margin. Pedestrians and cyclists are killed in LA at a rate of 2.9 per 100,000 people, much higher than the national average of 2.2 per capita. However, moreover, unhoused pedestrians are killed at a rate of 116.6 per capita. That's 53 times the national average. Everything is hostile to pedestrians, from the widespread use of beg buttons to the countdown clocks that last only enough for able-bodied adults to cross the street, LACC said. Cars are the #1 killer of kids in Los Angeles, and it's not hard to see why. The People's CDOT readied their equipment using only flashlights and the street lamps to light their way. The plan was to install a set of street calming barriers made of several PVC pipes adhered to cinder blocks with industrial glue at a busy crosswalk near a school and a public park. That way, if cars wanted to drive past, they'd have to slow down in order to navigate the barrier. While it doesn't stop the cars outright, it does make drivers think twice before speeding by. In that way, it makes all the difference. The crew needed to work quickly, though. There was a police station blocks away, steps really. There was no time to waste. A palpable nervous energy hung in the air like static electricity before a lightning strike. Someone asked if we all had heard about the driver who struck 4 pedestrians outside guaranteed rate field before a White Sox game earlier this week and sent them to the hospital in critical condition. We all had. People nodded solemnly and kept working. And if the story hardened the resolve of what they are doing. This is pretty interesting because it doesn't really cost much of, to what they're doing. If you're looking at the picture, oh, somebody trying to get in here. Okay. Yeah, if you look at the picture, these are cinder blocks at the bottom here. Let me zoom in on this. These are cinder blocks, and the PVC pipe is basically driven in between the cinder block, and there's some kind of cement that they're using to actually stabilize it. This is really interesting. But these are white folks doing this. These are, you know, what you call liberals out there doing this. And so what I'm saying here is that there's always where there's a will, there's a way in all of this. And so I think this is really innovative. I think that Black people should be doing more of this, if anything, if they really cared about the neighborhood in that capacity. Let me finish reading this real quick. Everyone who bikes knows someone who has been hurt. A people's CDOT member told the Daily Beast, I've seen people get hit by cars. I've been hit by cars. It's pretty bad. Once the materials were ready, the group transported everything by foot in cargo bikes to the site blocks away. As soon as they arrived, everyone quickly went over the plan and began working, caulking cinder blocks to the ground near the crosswalk and securing the posts with glue. It was Friday night in the summer, though, which meant that even in this quiet South Side Chicago, let me let this person in. It was a Friday night in the summer, though, which meant that even in this quiet South Side neighborhood, there were plenty of people walking and driving by. Occasionally, pedestrians would stop to look at what the group was doing for a while before going on their way. More often, though, cars would screech by as if it was to prove how much the installation was needed. Quote, see, that's what I'm talking about. Another member told the Daily Beast, cars will do that all day and night, and the city will do nothing about it. Hey, what's going on, Complex?
Yo, Mike, what's going on, man?
Not much, man.
I know I was gonna let you go ahead and finish, man. I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay. Yeah, something just happened to the website. Not sure what happened.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, something just happened to it.
Oh, okay.
Just bear with me for a second. Let me just get this up and going. I don't know what's going on with this website.
Did they pay their domain hosting?
I don't know. All right, you know what I'm going to do? Let me get out of this. Try this one more time. All right, the website is back. Let me try this again. We're almost done with this anyway, so let me finish this up. The installation neared its finish as members began attaching people's CDOT flyers to the post, though an older white man began walking towards the group. He had been watching for the past 5 minutes. A stony look on his face steadily grew from confusion to a righteous anger that seemed to say, "Get off my lawn." Quote, "What are you guys doing gathering here?" He asked no one in particular. Everyone continued to set up silently. This seemed unsatisfactory to him because he asked louder, "Who do you work for?" "We work for the people," John said. "The people," he laughed, though it didn't seem like he found any of it very funny. "Who approved this?" "Hey, I'm asking questions. Do you live here?" Quote, "If you want to learn more, you can fill out our survey," John said, pointing to a QR code on one of the flyers. The man squinted and stared at the flyer on the PVC pipe. He shook his head before asking again, "Who are you?" He took one last look at the group before storming back into a house less than a half a block away. So this is the flyer. Public notice, temporary traffic calming installation. This temporary traffic calming measure has been installed as a part of Chicago's Safe Streets pilot program. This measure aims to enhance traffic safety in the area. Please exercise caution when driving through the affected area to ensure that all road users remain safe. To request more information that will give feedback, please see the QR code. After he left, the group finished setting up the last of the installation with a little more urgency. An angry, older, white guy was bad news, like how a dead albatross portends doom for sailors. For the people CDOT, that might mean cops, and no one wanted to go to jail that night. Soon they finished. The group silently gathered up the equipment. John muttered something about going back to the sidewalk where they prepped before taking off on his cargo bike. Without another word from anyone, the group took off in separate directions, if choreographed, walking into the safety and security of the warm of the night. Anyways, I'm not going to cover all of this. I think this is pretty self-explanatory that Complex, this is a guerrilla group of bikers, activists, vigilantes who set up calming infrastructure, safety infrastructure for people on the streets of Chicago. You have any take on this?
That kind of reminds me of the messenger. Remember the bike messenger guys in New York? You know, the bike messenger guys back in like the late 90s and the early 2000s in New York.
Okay.
That whole movement that they had there.
Okay.
So it kind of reminds me of that a little bit. Yeah, I've seen this before. Also in California, especially in Venice. Okay, Venice, the majority of people get around on bikes. So it's a big bike town, and you'll get this kind of activism. Frisco also. I remember Frisco was like this back in the 90s. They were a lot like New York, a lot of bike messengers, a lot of bike events, bike movements, these groups. You know, I used to see a lot of that out here also. So this is just a replay of that. This is not nothing new, but it's new given this new transportation push we have.
Yeah. What I found interesting was this one piece here where he said, actually, where's it at? Anyways, it was more about right here where it says A report released in June by the Governor's Highway Safety Association found that drivers hit and killed more than 7,500 pedestrians in 2022, the highest number of fatalities since 1981. People of color represented a disproportionate amount of these deaths. So Black people getting hit off of their bikes seems to be, or, you know, people walking in general, but people getting hit off of their bikes seems to be a very common thing. And no one really talks about it. But these people took the need to go down to Home Depot, grab some cinder blocks and some PVC pipe and some caulking guns and start creating their own infrastructure, right? And so that's the sort of activism that is really necessary when you start talking about taking back communities and taking back neighborhoods, taking back streets, right? There's a lot of people who don't really understand that, what goes into this type of stuff.
Well, that's what I mean. Like if you go to like Venice, if you go to like Venice Beach, right? Go there and you'll see a perfect example of that. Like people take to the streets and they literally do stuff like that. Right? They literally do it because in their community, that's the preferred method to get around. So now what they're gonna do is they're gonna make the infrastructure around there safe for that. Trust me on this, bro. That was one of my zones when I first started working for Bird. And the bike shop owners hated me. They looked at the tech companies coming in to take their business, dude. They kind of weren't lying. It was kind of true.
Yeah, I mean, people are spending their own money and they're raising money on a GoFundMe.
Yes.
You know, when you talk to other Black men in this space, you know, I don't know what they're raising money for, but they seem to be, you know, aloof to what's going on. Black people being hit by cars doesn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in them. Dude,
like no lie, bro. Yesterday, I went to go grab a bottle of water from like just the corner market, and so I was hitting the little, you hit the push the button so that it signals for the pedestrian to cross.
Yep.
Right. So I pushed it. The light lights up. I just start to pedal on my bike, and bro, somebody blows a red light at like 65. Had I not really been paying attention, dude, I could have got free, dude.
Yeah. Especially if there's no cameras around. That's, you know,
and
that's
there are. I think there is a camera around over there, but still, homeboy blew past that red light, bro. He's doing like 65. If somebody was on a bike and that dude would have hit him at the speed he was going, then I doubt you would have made it.
Yeah. All right. Next item on the docket is from autorevolution.com. We're getting closer to a true smart bike. First e-bike with ChatGPT Copilot unveiled. This should be interesting. Man.
Yeah.
As artificial intelligence technology continues to advance, the implementation of AI systems in more and more areas of our lives is becoming more common. Urban mobility is one of those areas, with the phrase smart bike making even more sense than a few years back. A pioneer in the realm of electric bikes is Chinese mobility company Utopia, which has just announced it is teaming with OpenAI to deliver a ChatGPT integration into its e-bikes. Man, this is going to be interesting. All right.
Holy moly.
The announcement was made
brilliant.
The announcement was made at Eurobike 2023 in Frankfurt, Germany, where the e-bike manufacturer demonstrated how cycling is about to get more fun with ChatGPT as a Dash integrated co-pilot. If you've been living under a rock, ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence chatbot that answers prompts provided by users, generates information, solves puzzles, writes programming code, and much more. It has only been around since November of last year, but it seemingly is everywhere already. People have long envisioned a future where they could interact with their vehicles, be they only on 2 or 4 wheels. And that time has come. Mercedes was the first transportation company to announce it would integrate the highly controversial chatbot into the voice control of its cars, and it's already testing out the technology. Utopia follows in its footsteps, becoming the first e-bike company to do the same with its Utopia X ChatGPT model. Though it is a young company, having debuted in 2021, Utopia has made itself known in the e-bike realm with tech-infused electric two-wheelers boasting cutting-edge features such as fingerprint unlocking, built-in GPS navigation, anti-theft protection, and other proprietary technology designed to enhance rider safety. Now, the integration of ChatGPT into its e-bikes will transform them into full-on smart bikes that will take the cycling experience to a whole new level. With the power of ChatGPT and Utopia's voice recognition feature, the Utopia smart e-bike becomes an exceptional companion for riders, delivering real-time assistance based on users' needs, says the company. Dubbed the bicycle with a mind, the Utopia X ChatGPT will be able to deliver a truly intelligent and responsive bike experience, Utopia promises. In layman's terms, ChatGPT will help e-bikes provide improved voice interaction with the rider. Previously, Utopia's voice assistant technology was only allowing for basic interactions through simple commands related to assistance levels and lane changes. The integration with OpenAI's chatbot will open new interaction possibilities because the rider will be able to ask the bike whatever they want. For instance, they might want to find out how to change a flat tire, ask for directions to a certain location, or request information about their surroundings and the weather forecast. Moreover, riders can also ask the bot to play curated playlists over a built-in speaker or prompt it to build up a conversation on any mundane topic. I don't know if that's the future of biking.
It's like basically your bike becomes Kit from Knight Rider.
Yeah, but even Kit was useful. I don't think that's useful to have a conversation with your bike. When I'm riding, I'm more worried about my whereabouts. I'm not sure if I want to have a conversation.
Like, so what happened on that live stream, bike? You know, the bike tells you about like the latest conversation in the manager.
Yeah, I'm not really. Yeah,
I gotta. It's a bit overkill, dude. I don't know if you really need all that, especially if you're riding a bike.
Well, I don't know if it's overkill to have AI in a bike. I think AI is appropriate, right? You know, the ability to measure.
I'm talking about like for it to talk to you. Do you really need all that?
Maybe if I'm at a stoplight and I need like some kind of assistance on what the next best course of action would be if there's like traffic built up or something like that, right? Or if I'm lost in the area.
You don't need it to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
That's what it was just saying. I'm like, dude, so this is basically a kit.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. They need some, real tech people in there to really understand what it is that they're trying to get off. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I think what it is, I think their whole aim, and this is what a lot of them do. The whole aim is to achieve integration with it, right? And then kind of tailor the features, right? As they roll it out, as people use it, as people talk about what they use it for, then what they'll do is build on the things that people do use it for, and then the stuff that they're saying, oh yeah, you can summon you can go, or you can call your order from Taco Bell on this thing, and they maybe people don't use that feature or something like that. That's not something they're gonna play up or anything like that. But if it is something where people use it for like real-time direction, weather, or something like that, things that are spatial to the bike itself and the environment, then I think that's what they'll bump up in terms of ChatGPT feature usage. It's going to be more centric to the usage of the bike and not that novelty crap where it's like, oh, I can have a conversation with it while I ride.
Yeah, it's kind of like Sarah Palin saying I could see Russia from here, in Alaska. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just like, there's some things,
these nifty binoculars.
Yeah. There's some things that need to be really thought of. It needs to be thought through just a little bit deeper, right? And for me, AI on a bike, to me, is measuring what my next destination is from the place that I am at, how much battery capacity that I have, And what is my caloric burn going to be pedaling, and with assisted pedaling as well with the motor, right? Also, what the weather is going to be and what the traffic condition is going to be. All these sort of environmental factors that make up my daily trip, right? I don't want to have a conversation with my bike. I don't care about playing music while I'm riding. I'm more worried about getting knocked off, my bike if I don't have, like the previous article said, calming infrastructure that can actually protect me in this country with the lunatics that are out here. So,
I'll tell you like this. I really do think for what they call it, for PR purposes, that right there gets, investors, their juices flowing, so to speak, right? It's just the fact that they successfully achieved some level of chat GPT integration on the bike. A lot of people look how sleek the bike looks, the features in it, and they'll want to throw money at it. And I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, but one of the other factors here is that the AI could actually determine what the road surface condition could be, whether or not it's bumpy or if it's smooth or not, and it can give that feedback right into the AI in the cloud, and they can feed that to other riders, who are subscribed to the network. These are the sort of things that matter. Bikes are vehicles, and they need to collect as much data as possible. Like a car collects how many times you accelerate versus brake and how many times you turn the wheel and things of that nature. It collects a lot of data that goes into that black box that you don't see. And so, a lot of that information gets sold off if you're a truck driver, like I think Ty City was talking about with Qualcomm. They're collecting a lot of the statistics and analysis that the truck drivers and the trucks were having based on the data collection that they were trying to gain or trying to achieve. And so I just think that with bikes, there's a lot more nuance to AI. For example, like in Chicago, like the previous article was saying, go into a pretty dangerous area. Well, the bike can determine whether or not you may want to try a different path. I may not want to go down that street, or I may not, based on the, the criminal statistics and.
I was about to say, it runs a quick scan. It's like, there was like 3 shootings on the street yesterday, bro. Stay away from it.
Yeah, real time. I need to pull some of that information from Twitter, based on.
Block is hot. Block is hot.
Yeah. Yeah. You may want to try a different route, But these are sort of things that we wish more Black people would get involved in from a development standpoint. We're a part of this same country and the same communities too. I don't see why, we have to play the sideline when it comes to technology development. What's going on, to go?
Yeah. Hey, Mike. Hey, Complex. What's going on? Yeah, man. You guys are rocking right on it. As you know, I work, in the city. I'm in Manhattan a lot, and right in Midtown, and and you could just look at the bike lanes. And you were talking about chat GPT on bikes and all that. That's something that's been talked about around this town for a while. So that's why that's pretty big. And the way they have it going is they have, bike lanes going well up into Manhattan, into the Bronx, and actually coming up in the Westchester, because when you go up the Bronx River Parkway and you go all the way up to White Plains, there's a whole bike lane there, and they close the streets off on Sundays, so people can ride all the way up from literally from the Bronx, Yonkers, damn near, all the way up to White Plains and so forth. So it's all about bikes and getting around, and that's just how it's going. And yes, we should be deeply involved in technology because it's a very economical and intelligent way to travel around. And if and it's a safer way, as you were talking about. There are a lot of people who are getting hit, pedestrians and so forth getting really injured terribly, out here just walking around and so forth. And it's mostly Black people. It's as you say, it's disproportionate with us. So we had better bike lanes and so forth, and be able to travel this way. And e-bikes, instead of people buying expensive cars, in some ways it's a very economical and very smart way to get around. And I'm definitely going to be investing in that myself. And they're not that expensive. I mean, for me, it's not, but I mean, for others, it might be a bit more, but definitely these are good investments for us to get into. We should be involved in the technology. because it's a great way to get around the state for us. We're the ones who are on the course. Anything that goes negative or happens negatively in the cities or in the area, we're going to be the ones who are going to be affected the most. So we should definitely be involved in this. But yeah, good stuff. You guys are right on it, man. It's really good.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to the next item on the docket. This is from TechCrunch. Plastic upcycling startup Cubic closes $3.34 million seed to scale production in Ethiopia. It's good to see our comrades on the continent, raising money. The amount of plastic waste produced globally is on track to triple to over 1,000 million tons by 2060. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, report predicts that developed countries will continue to produce the most plastic waste per person, although emerging regions like Africa and Asia are expected to experience the fastest growth owing to rapid population growth and urbanization. Plastic pollution is already a menace, said to be altering environments and endangering lives, but there is a glimmer of hope as their share of recycled plastic is expected to nearly double over the same period to 17% as plastic going through waste management systems increases. In Africa, Cubic, an upcycling startup with operations in Kenya and Ethiopia, is among the companies that are leading plastic waste reuse and sustainability efforts in the continent's nascent recycling sector, which currently salvages only 4% of the waste produced. The startup turns hard to recycle plastic waste, polyethylene and polypropylene and polystyrene into affordable building materials, removing 45,000 kilograms of plastic waste from landfills every year. The startup is now planning to double down on the production of building materials in Ethiopia before scaling to other countries within Africa, against the backdrop of a recently closed $3.34 million seed funding round. Founded by Qudus Asfa and Penda Mari in 2021, Cubic plans to scale production at its plant in Ethiopia later this year, saying it has the capacity to build over 250,000 square meters of wall surface every year. Quote, this can build anywhere up to 10,000 affordable homes per year. For example, speaking of affordable housing, there is a $300 million plus deficit of housing units globally that are considered affordable to the poor. This is a $2 trillion plus market we have an opportunity to address, and we are just getting started, said Asfa, the CEO of the company, which won Startup of the Year at the 2023 Global Startup Awards and was declared the leading climate tech startup in Africa at last week's Viva Tech conference. $2 trillion market. Investors that took part in the round include Plug and Play, Bestseller Foundation, Gig Africa Fund, Satgana, Unruly Capital, I don't know if I trust them, Savannah Fund, African Renaissance Partners, Kazana Fund, Princeton Alumni Angels, and Andev Capital. Quote, we are thrilled to invest and partner with Kubrick on the transformative journey. Their purpose-driven vision, exceptional team, and unique business model combining positive social impact, circular economy, and low-carbon construction positions Cubic as a scalable and sustainable solution to Africa's most pressing challenges, said climate tech VC Satgana co-founder Romain Diaz. Cubic develops interlocking building materials, which include bricks, columns, beams, and jambs, allowing developers to erect walls without the need for cement, aggregates, and steel. Asphalt says this does not compromise the building's integrity and that the strength of the walls built with its products is at par with cement-based walls. He added that Cubic's products cost at least 40% less per square meter and have chemical properties that make them safe, anti-flammable, and non-degradable. Besides, he says these products are low carbon with a greenhouse gas emission of at least 5x less than cement-based products. Asphalt says the material affordability can play a role in bridging the current housing deficit that is partly driven by a growing urban population and hefty costs of construction. The startup is driving this change even as global appeals continue for governments to introduce policies that lessen plastic waste and encourage a more circular use of plastics. The world is urbanizing dramatically fast today, and cities are feeling the burden of unmanaged plastic waste, unaffordable living conditions, especially in housing, and the impact of climate change. Our company plays a role in addressing all three of these challenges through a lower carbon, lower cost building solution that removes plastic waste from the environment. We believe this is why there is a lot of excitement in our company and its mission. We have a product that is transforming how we build sustainably and more affordably, and we see ourselves becoming a company that will continue to drive technology into the materials used for decarbonizing the built environment faster. $2 trillion market conflicts.
Yeah, man. It's like they're like building real life size Legos.
Yeah.
For building. And it's brilliant.
Who says Black folks can't work together?
I didn't say that, that's for sure.
Yeah, Kenya and Ethiopia, offices in Kenya, Ethiopia, $2 trillion market, raised $3.34 million and was rated #1 startup for 2023, if I remember correctly. So.
All they need to do is secure contracts with builders to supply them. And they can basically, if they could get those orders, the pre-orders in, that's what would get them the second rounds, third rounds.
Oh, they're going to scale. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
They're going to scale. Yeah. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from science.org. U.S. military contract could help Black university become research powerhouse. Howard University wins special competition to form new tactical autonomy institute. U.S. Air Force wants scientists at Howard University to figure out how its fighter pilots can team up with robotic co-pilots to defeat enemy combatants. But aerial superiority isn't the only goal of Howard's new research institute for tactical autonomy, RITA. University officials are also hoping the Air Force initial 5-year, $90 million investment in RITA under a special arrangement that makes additional funding all but certain will help Howard become, a typo, become the first historically Black institution to ascend to the top ranks of the nation's research universities. Quote, this should be a real game changer, predicts Donda Rawat, an electrical engineer and associate dean for research at Howard, who will be RITA's founding director. Quote, we've been doing a lot with a small amount of resources, says Rawat, who now directs a $7.5 million Department of Defense DoD Center of Excellence on Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning. But the new university-affiliated research center, announced in January, is a huge step. The Air Force is expected long-term investment in Howard, one of the nation's 104 historically Black colleges and universities, addresses a congressional mandate that DoD begin to distribute its massive research budget more equitably. The UARC, the 15th such center funded by DoD and the first for the Air Force, is a potent mechanism for doing so. Special rules that allow a UARC to receive a steady stream of DoD contracts without external competition have fueled the growth of such academic powerhouses as Johns Hopkins University in 1941, a project at Hopkins to develop a more lethal artillery shell morphed into DoD's first UARC, the Applied Physics Laboratory. APL is now a $2 billion a year juggernaut with more than 8,200 employees. No HBCU has a research budget even 1/10 that size. I'm told this is the largest research award ever received by an HBCU, says Victoria Coleman, chief scientist for the Air Force. Quote, the under-resourcing of HBCUs didn't get created overnight, and the problem isn't going to get solved overnight. And in my book, this center is still not enough, but a vehicle like UARC, something that's going to be there for the long haul, can be an important stepping stone. I think this is the woman up here. Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah. In announcing the Howard contract, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin noted that HBCUs train 30% of all Black scientists and engineers, yet receive only 0.05% of DoD's massive R&D budget, which is approaching $100 billion. Let me say this again. Let me say this again.
That's a lot of money, bro.
In announcing Howard's contract, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin noted that HBCUs train 30% of all Black scientists and engineers, yet receive only 0.05% of the DoD's massive R&D budget, which is approaching $100 billion. How many times have we said this on these live streams? We're not talking about super chats and cash apps and Zills and Venmos, okay? We're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars.
30% though?
Huh?
30%?
They graduate 1/3 of Black scientists and engineers. It was just talking about Howard. But they only get 0.05% of the $100 billion in R&D.
And that's the part I wanted to highlight. Because I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the 30% versus the 0.0 something percent. Now, something's off there. And there's 100 something billion, something's off.
No, but we just talked about last month, the VC, venture capitalist spending for Black people is 0.56%.
Once again, something's off.
200 to 300 to $400 billion in VC capital does not make it into the hands of Black founders. HBCUs get 0.05% of $100 billion. I mean, the math ain't mathing, but you don't hear people in the space really talking about this, right? People in the space do not talk about this. They don't talk about this. All they're concerned about is the super chats and the cash apps and the Venmos and the Zills and the
Coming
PayPals.
Coming back to the table.
Well, I'm saying financially, they're only concerned about the little bit of revenue that they can collect on YouTube. But I'm saying when you start talking about the $100 billion of research money, R&D budget that the DoD has, we start talking about the $500 billion that the VC industry investors have. What are we talking about here? We're only getting 0.56%. So this idea that, the space is having an impact, man, I don't see where the impact is. Let me finish reading this because I'm feeling my blood boiling. Last year's legislators were even more explicit, telling the DoD to target funding to HBCUs striving to join the roughly 150 universities labeled R1 under a voluntary classification system for academic institutions based on their research activity. In response, DoD took the unprecedented step of restricting competition for the UARC to the 11 HBCUs that had announced the goal of becoming R1s. 4 submitted proposals, and in January, the Air Force chose Howard, arguably the best known HBCU, as the lead institute in a consortium of 8 HBCUs that will operate RETA. The Institute's mission is to develop technologies that make possible seamless and instantaneous joint reasoning and decision-making between human and machine. That is a much bigger challenge than autonomy needed for a self-driving vehicle. Those who follow defense research give the Air Force decision a thumbs up. Quote, "This award makes perfect sense given the congressional directive, says Andrew Metrick, a defense fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Quote, "Tactical autonomy is a critical need for the Air Force," he notes, "and the cachet of a UARC will make it easier for Howard to win contracts from other branches of the military for related work." Talk about DEI, right? Coleman says, some senior Air Force officials had reservations about forming a major long-term relationship with an HBCU because it lacked the pedigree of the top-tier research universities that operate most UARCs. But Coleman says her boss, Secretary of the Air Force, Frank Kendall, backed her up when she presented the idea of an HBCU-only competition for a new UARC. "What took you so long?" Coleman recalls his reaction. "That was really a good day." In holding the competition for new UARC, the Air Force decided it would only accept proposals from consortia of institutions, seeing that structure was the structure as a good way to both build capacity across HBCUs and to draw on their unique assets. DoD first used that approach 15 years ago in funding a UARC on systems engineering, and its director says there is strength in numbers. Quote, "When you're a large university, your natural inclination is to think you can do it all yourself," says Dinesh Verma, a systems engineer at the Stevens Institute of Technology, who has led the Systems Engineering Research Center since its formation. Quote, "There were quite a few naysayers at the beginning because all the previous UARCs were located at large, well-established universities, PWIs to be more exact. But a small university is more open to the idea of a network, which has worked very well." Bendu Nair, head of DoD's Basic Research Office, hopes the RETA will not only help Howard attain R1 status, but also expand the nation's pool of STEM talent. Being an R1 is what higher ed uses to measure research capacity, says Nair, a material scientist who came up through the Army's research system. But a more important goal, she says, is creating more students capable of doing higher quality research. And if the institutions are committed to doing that, then we will support them in getting to where they want to be. The heavy teaching load carried by HBCU faculty is a major impediment to becoming a research powerhouse, Nair says. We hear it from them all the time. How am I supposed to focus on my research if I have these requirements in terms of teaching? But they don't want to give up the teaching because that's where a lot of the mentoring takes place. The promise of continued funding that comes with a UARC is designed to remove that obstacle, Coleman says. If you have money to do research, you also have money through overhead that allows you to hire additional people, she says. And the UARC will give them the confidence to add faculty, equip their labs, and build up their programs by training more students. Now in temporary quarters on Howard's main campus in northwestern Washington, D.C., RETA expects to move early next year into a 10-story building being renovated at an off-campus site a few kilometers away. Bruce Jones, Howard's vice president for research, can't wait to see it in action. When DoD commits to a UARC, it's not just to fund more research, Jones says, it's also a promise to mentor the next generation. You know, it's funny that we just had a conversation the other day about the Supreme Court coming down on affirmative action. But this is what affirmative action is supposed to be doing, okay? This is exactly what it's designed to do.
Yeah, you know, Mike, I was literally going to just ask you, what were your thoughts on this? There's like a real heavy correlation to what you just read and what we covered, what, just a few days ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, my take is that this is exactly what affirmative action is supposed to do. But you have people saying that, no, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't have these sort of programs and sort of initiatives. Well, the reason why you didn't have that diversity before is because someone made a hard decision not to be inclusive of Black people from HBCUs. Okay, most of the $100 billion was going to PWIs, but nobody talks about that. No one sees the lack of diversity in that as a failing within the system itself. And that's the whole purpose of affirmative action. It's supposed to is to remedy all of these sort of inefficiencies in social cohesion. You can't possibly run your country like this. And then, well, you know, HBCUs, you know, like the article was saying, you know, people were very apprehensive. Some people were apprehensive. Yeah, you're going to be apprehensive because you've been doing this the last 50, 60 years, you know, giving all your money to PWIs. If HBCUs don't get a cut of the research budget, then how are they supposed to prove themselves? You know, how are they supposed to ever, you know, prove that they can be on par if you're not being inclusive in the first place? That's the sort of stuff that people don't talk about when it comes to affirmative action, that this is exactly what it was designed to do. Now, there's some people who are anti-military, you know, and I understand all that, but I'm saying when it comes to all of this, take away the military, it's still, you know, it's still an application that needs to be fulfilled. And if Black people are not getting to that $100 billion and they're only getting 0.05%, you know, less than 1%, that's not progress, okay? That's not progress at all. And so, yeah, you're not gonna see Black people in these industries because they're not being inclusive to begin with at the research level. So my take on that is this is a positive, regardless if you like the military or not, regardless if you like the big government or not, this is how things move forward. Government is the catalyst behind a lot of your progress.
Well, I was going to say, there's always going to, at the end of the day, there's an industrial tie, right? Because a lot of your consumer products come from technologies that were once deployed in military and theater. Okay, see, so there's an intrinsic industrial tie to all of this, and this is literally what brings us into that. But there's so many guys who started out doing specialty military work and then spun off, became contractors, got contracts and all this type of stuff, and they utilize programs like this to get access to that $101 billion dollars that was noted. So if it's good for D, it should be good for ye. You know, no one's talking about Kanye.
But just imagine if Black folks were getting, you know, $100 billion for research and development on emerging technologies. Are you kidding me? Do you know what that can do for most?
Come on.
It's just, you know, and people are dancing in the street. Black folks, at least in this space, are dancing in the streets that the Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action in regards to race admissions. Well, you're not going to get the best of your talent coming out of HBCUs in these sort of vertical and emerging industries if you don't have the talent to begin with. Absolutely silly perspective to have against people, you know, trying to be a part of this society. Anyways, let's go to the next item on the docket. This is from, actually, I should have kept that other tab open. It's cool. I'll stick with this. This is from shopblack.us. Black inventors create first biorobotic arm operated by Brian Signals. Okay. A biorobotic arm created by two Black inventors looks like it's straight out of a science fiction movie, but it's actually not from the future. David Gathu and Moses Kinyua, inventors from Nairobi, Kenya, have created a biorobotic prosthetic arm that could change the lives of disabled Kenyans and the future of prosthetics entirely. Their newest invention doesn't break a world record, it sets it. Most prosthetic technology is powered by a person's muscles, equipped with sensors to detect the flexing of appropriate muscles. The bionic limb will act accordingly. Gathu and Kinyua's prosthetic works differently. Instead of listening for muscle signals, it listens for brain signals and is the first in the world to do so. Come on with it, man. Come on with it, man.
That reminds me of the Jobs and Woes pick from, what was that, 78 in the garage with the first Apple.
Yeah,
that's what this picture reminds me of.
Yeah, come on with it, man.
Dude, come on, bro.
Badass brothers, man. Badass brothers. When the brain tells the prosthetic to do something, those signals are converted into an electric current by a neural node, a biopotential headset receiver, a technology originally invented to assist individuals suffering from paralysis and speech loss. The electrical current is then redirected into the arm circuitry, giving the arm both mobility and direction. The idea for the biorobotic arm came to the inventors amid the pandemic when they began thinking of how to help their country deal with the devastating virus. Quote, when the virus hit our country, we decided to create a machine that could help us decontaminate surfaces. It can also be used in schools, restaurants, and hospitals. Kinyua explains from his workshop in the city of Kikuyu, north of Nairobi. Though Kenya's response to the virus has been better than most, it's easy for hospitals to get overwhelmed rather quickly, and a biorobotic arm can speed up the disinfected process, allowing the treatment of patients to speed up simultaneously. The sanitizing device with the arm, though still a prototype, oxidizes oxygen molecules to convert into ozone to be used as a disinfectant. Ozone has been proven to be highly effective in killing bacteria and inactivating viruses on surfaces, and remains 50 times more effective and acts 3,000 times faster than chlorine, which remains the most popular disinfectant. Remarkably, the creation of this innovative device comes from humble beginnings. The biorobotic arm was designed entirely from second-hand parts salvaged from any old discarded electronics David Gathu and Moses Kinyua could find. Quote, at the moment, we use raw materials from other discarded appliances because we don't have neither the place nor the resources to obtain the necessary materials to mass produce, Kinyua remarks. Though the two inventors don't work in a state-of-the-art facility, the work they managed to do with the salvaged material is indicative of how possible it is to change the lives of many without an expensive lab or tools. Though the biorobotic arm was initially created to help COVID-19 sanitation efforts, the young inventors' technology can influence how prosthetics for the disabled are produced. The number of applications this technology could have is innumerable and can change how medical technology works in the future. Let's watch this clip.
The reason why we designed this robotic hand is because we wanted to help those people who have lost the use of their limbs. Our aim is to give them something that will help them or will aid them to go into their daily activities, to move from a dependent person to an independent person.
Such invention of prosthetic arms, such level of technology will go in a big way, not just improving our economy in terms of production, but also making it more acceptable to society. It's not bulky, it's easier for the persons with the ability to handle them. It's quite a game changer in terms of amputation and rehabilitation.
Come on with it, man. What are we
Bro,
talking about here?
they used Apple USB-C plug. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Like, like whatever they had to do to get it done.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever they had to do to get it done. And I don't want to hear people talk about like they don't have running water. Shut up with that stupid shit. Like that is just, I'm sorry, bro. Like you throw all that out the window at this point. Like we should at this point, man, I got ideas in my head. Like, is what we need to be doing, man, is securing some of this like IP right here. Working with them. Look at this, man. In that, like I said, man, that reminds me of that picture of Woes and Jobs with the first Apple.
Yeah. Except they have more money, even in their position at their age, than these cats do right here. And so one of those things that people don't take seriously enough in this space is the real autodidacts. Okay, the guy who dropped out of school, like this brother on the Gathu on the right or on your left. This is what a real autodidact does. Okay, they don't sit up here and talk about, well, I'm a chemist. No, they don't say that. They actually go out there and they prove what it is their theory is by putting it into application. Okay, putting it into development. And what's happening here is that the reason why we don't see a lot of Black people in the industry at this level is because they don't have access to the resources and they're not being given access to the opportunities. Okay, when you bring the resources, financial and otherwise, lab equipment and otherwise, and you give them the opportunity, you will see more diversity in these areas. Okay, but we're not seeing it because we don't have access to the monies. $100 billion from the Department of Defense goes a long way to a lot of Black folks in these HBCUs and these PBIs. Okay, this is the real Afrofuturism in real time.
This is the true
Marvel and Black Panther was cool.
Nah, this is the real shit right here. This is the real shit.
Yeah, this is the real deal. This is the real deal. Okay. Marvel and Black Panther, that was cool. Cinematic feature, great movie, great, production from Ryan Coogler. But once you walk out of the movie theater, this is the real deal.
Right.
Okay?
Right. And this is what we talk about Afrofuturism. This is literally what we're talking about. Like literally this. It's not not the imagery, not the artistic or creative expression of it, but the actual expression of it. That's this right here.
Nagone, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, right now, man. I'm just getting something to eat here, man. We're grilling, so I'll be with you in a minute. I'll be with you in a minute.
All right, man. All right, man.
You good? You good?
All right, last item on the docket. Let me cover this real quick.
Crops, and these giant stems are a part of the problem. One company in Uganda has figured out how to pulverize them into fiber to make rugs, placemats, even hair extensions. First, workers cut the stems into celery-shaped chunks and leave them out to dry in the sun. Then they feed those strands into an extractor, like this one. The extracted fibers dry again until they feel like a silky yarn, but one that is as strong as rope. The final stop is the weaving shed, where the making of household goods and handicrafts begins. Bananas are one of the world's most wasteful crops, and these giant stems are a part of the problem. One company in Uganda has figured out how to pulverize them into fiber to make rugs, placemats, even hair extensions. First, workers cut the stems into celery-shaped chunks and leave them out to dry in the sun. Then they feed those strands into an extractor, like this one. The extracted fibers dry again until they feel like a silky yarn, but one that is as strong as rope. The final stop is the weaving shed, where the making of household goods and handicrafts begins.
What's up, bro?
All right, man. I'm gonna need you to forward that to me, man. I need you to forward that one to me.
All right.
Yo, I mean,
I think it's in the yeah.
Is it in the docket? It's in the docket. Okay. Yeah. That's just, dude. That's like some hemp. That's like hemp fiber type shit.
Yep.
Right. That's another multi-use textile that typically it was sourced from what would typically be waste, as the guy was saying, the most wasteful part of the plant.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then you just turned it into a textile that's got usage from like carpentry and stuff like that. Dude, the hair extensions, bruh.
What about racing jackets for go-karting and things of that nature?
I'm saying, like,
there's so many ways you can go about this. Yeah, there's so many ways to go about this. But again, I'm showing this so that people can understand innovation doesn't have to come from PWIs. It can come from predominantly Black institutions, HBCUs, Black people, the Black community, Black neighborhoods, Black people, Black men. It doesn't necessarily have to be, white first or white adjacent or white in proximity or white face. It doesn't have to be that way.
We are fully capable of coming up with solutions, bro. We're fully capable of it. It doesn't have to be, like you said, it doesn't have to be adjacent to somebody else in their research or anything like that. We're fully capable of expressing our own ingenuity. Fully capable.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody from Africa actually sent this to me a few weeks ago, back in June, and I hadn't gotten around to it because we wasn't streaming, but I wanted to present this because I think that, these are the sort of conversations that I'm having with people on the continent, okay? These are some conversations that we're having. This is important. If he had more resources, he'd be doing a heck of a lot more. And you see, he's guerrilla farming for all intents and purposes, okay? Guerrilla farming. We've covered this a couple of years ago about guerrilla farming.
Yeah, the extractor that they were using, I'm not going to say it's primitive.
Are one of the world's most wasteful crops, basically, and these giant stems are a part of the problem. One company in Uganda has figured out how to pulverize them into fiber to make rugs, placemats, even hair extensions. First, workers cut the stems into celery-shaped chunks and leave them out to dry in the sun. Then they feed those strands into an extractor, like this one. The extracted fibers dry again until they feel like a silky yarn, but one that is as strong as rope. The final stop is the weaving shed, where the making of household goods and handicrafts begins.
Crazy, bro. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, man.
A lot of different ways you can go about this. A lot of different ways you can go about this. It's just, he said new weaves on deck. Yeah, I mean, Black people only control 1% of the hair industry. I mean, why shouldn't they take advantage of these sort of things? This is a part of the United Nations SDG, Sustainability Development Goals. Okay, they're fulfilling all of it. Same thing with the David Gathu out in Kenya that we just saw the last article, sustainability. He's taking all of the scrap electronics and technology that's around him and leveraging it to create prosthetics, okay? Biorobotic arms.
Right.
Okay. We talked about Guerrilla bike activists, right? These sort of activists that saw the need, they saw the need to create calming infrastructure in these environments, especially predominantly Black environments where people get hit by vehicles. That's where it starts at. And so anyone who thinks that this can't be done is being proven that it can be done. Let me make sure I drop that in the chat because, some people are going to be like, oh man, y'all ain't share the link. Brain trust is cheap. Listen, man, Black people have been inventing things since they came to these shores. And you want to go back all the way to Africa, the running toilet and all these other things were already long invented before Europeans even got there. Black people have been known for innovating, and so. Anything else? Closing thoughts on this complex?
No, man. This is another dope one, Mike. Sorry I came in a little bit late. But no, man. Appreciate the chop up, bro.
Definitely. I think Nagon's already out.
No, I just jumped on out.
He's grilling and chilling.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, man. Great show, man. Great show, you guys. You guys, is a great show. Awesome show.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Appreciate you.
Right.
Too.
All right. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.